afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Let me make sure I get myself set up here. Short of the time here, didn't have time to fully set up, but nonetheless, we're gonna get into it because this video here today is very, very important for us to actually make these money moves before we die. I just came out very blunt and layman's terms so everybody can understand it. Not before you pass, not before you meet your maker and all those things. No, before you die, there are some money moves that you guys need to make. And this video is inspired by a good friend of mine who posted something on his Facebook. And I say, this is important for people to know because there's a lot of information in the financial world that we essentially don't know. But the one thing that I know was going to occur to everyone, that we all will pass away, that we all will die. But what happens to your money when you pass away? What happens to your asset? What happens to your property when you die? Now, the short answer is if you do not have a will or a trust set up, most likely that money is going to pay off your debts, and then that money is going to go to the state or the government or the federal government. Most likely your state, okay? Unless you're in Washington, D.C., where D.C. is not a state, so it might just go to the federal government. But nonetheless, your money will go to the government, some form of government, when you don't have certain, wills and trusts set in place. But there are some other financial documents that if you believe that you cannot afford a trust, that is important for you to be aware of and also set up. Because even though you're dead and gone, there's nothing you can do, but there's a way that we talk about generational wealth, making sure things are in order, because here you are building an empire. Here you are acquiring property, buying business, making contracts. You're doing all sorts of things to grow your net worth, okay? To live a lineage where those after you can come and pick up and take off from where you are and live a better life. But there are some things, family, that we must understand, that we must know. And I'm just going to start this one off, but essentially with what they call payable on death. Okay, payable on death. That's very important that we understand payable on death. Let's get here. Here we go. It says that POD is an arrangement between a bank or a credit union and a client that designates beneficiaries to receive all of the client's assets. Listen, POD, you receive all of the client's assets. The immediate transfer of assets is triggered by the death of the client. Though morbid, these structures are important to understand. I cannot agree more. Now, some of you may be familiar with the Totten Trust, a POD arrangement also known as a Totten Trust. It states here, an individual with an account or COD at a bank can designate a beneficiary who will inherit any money in the account after their death. A bank account with a named beneficiary is called a payable on death account. People who opt for POD accounts do so to keep their money out of probate court in the event they pass away. Now, this is very important, family. I cannot stress this enough because this is very, very important when you look at it. Because a lot of times a will can get caught up in probate, and probate is just a fancy word that they use, meaning court. Especially you have surviving family members. It doesn't matter if it's a niece, nephew, a brother or sister, an aunt or uncle, mother or father. It doesn't matter who survives you, because they are attaching you in some form or fashion. They can actually take other family members to court and try to prove the significance of their relationship to you. Thus, you are entitled to some of the money, or you're entitled to part of the property. Whatever it may be, you are entitled to some of it. So it's important to set up a payable on death account, or rather certificate, with your bank or credit union. Let me move on. There's a lot to cover here today, family, but this is very, very important because these are some of the questions that I know that you guys actually, ask, so to speak. Let me make sure I got this going on correctly, family. I keep doing the same thing. You can't keep doing the same thing expecting different results, okay? Let me see here. Now, this next one here, family, is what they call a TOD. It's called transfer on death deed. Okay, transfer on death deed. Now, here in the state of Texas, this is important because property is everything. I mean, every state property is everything, but the point here is that you can actually set up a TOD, and you may have to do this in your state as well. But again, the public doesn't know this information because they don't teach it in schools, they don't teach it in college. You just kind of got to fall into it, so to speak. But by that time, you have already perished. But nonetheless, a transfer on death deed conveys property outside of probate. Again, probate means court. Listen, a transfer on death deed conveys property outside of court. Not having to go through probate allows you to avoid incurring court costs and administrative costs to deed the property to your beneficiary. Under current law, it also excludes the real property from Medicaid estate recovery. And all of this is just a fancy word to say, whoever you leave that property to is now theirs, and you don't have to go to court. Okay, so that's a TOD, transfer on death, and it has to do with other little things. And the question you guys may have, and they kind of answer right here on the government website for Texas, does a transfer on death deed replace a will? It states the transfer on death deed does not completely replace a will. A will can still be an important part of your estate plan. Your will may provide how real or personal property without beneficiary designation passes, and may provide what happens if all beneficiaries predecease you, okay? Predecease you. Your will may allow you to provide in detail who gets items of personal property, including your motor vehicle, heirlooms, furniture, blah, blah, blah. So again, the transfer of death deed document is very important when it comes to your property. Okay, that's not going to go through court. It's adjacent with your will. It makes the case that way when you're in your grave, you're not tossing and turning that your family is fighting over your estate. Whatever assets, whatever bank accounts, don't forget POD deals with your bank accounts, okay? Your bank accounts with your banks and your credit unions. TOD, okay, for most likely for the state of Texas, and I'm pretty sure a lot of states model this, is for your property that you can settle out of court. It's almost like having a trust that you're not paying on. But again, you got to have these documents set up before you die, okay? A lot of people don't like talking about death, but you're going to die. I'm going to die. We're all not going to be here. We don't know the time we're going to go, but we should have these things in place, family, to make sure that our family, okay, whoever we designate, receive these. And most likely, your beneficiary is going to at least two deep, okay? You're going to have maybe a sister or brother, mother, father, uncle, brother, whatever, right? Then you're going to have somebody just in case they may pass away before it's transferred, or, you know, they may pass away before they get a chance to actually sit up. Then it goes to the next person in succession. So again, this is very important, okay? Let me move on. There's a lot of information to cover here. You guys ever heard of a, what they call a durable power of attorney? It says it allows one to designate a person to make legal decisions if one is no longer competent to do so, okay? A durable power of attorney. I know some verbiage, people use a special power of attorney. Some people even, while they're alive, do a general power of attorney. And a general power of attorney in layman terms, family, is that somebody legally can withdraw money from your account, buy a property, buy a car. They can do everything in your name without any personal repercussions on them. That doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. A lot of military members, when they're traveling abroad or they're getting deployed, a lot of them do special power attorneys. Hey, my wife, my husband can only do these things in my name, okay? They can buy one couch and 2 chairs. Then some members like, hey, you know, my wife, my husband, they have a general power of attorney. And some of the men and women go out and buy Lamborghinis, and you wonder why you're, never mind. But that's some of the things that essentially happen, okay? Now, a power of attorney for your health care. You guys ever thought about that? It says that this document allows one to designate someone to make health care decisions for that person. Let's say you become sickly, let's say you become unconscious and you get into a bad accident. Who's making these decisions for you? Most likely, if you're married, your husband or your wife will. But what if you're not? What if you're single? Who would you want to make those decisions for you? Your father, your dad, your sister, your brother? You get the point I'm making here. We kind of already know the importance. I've done in the past, years past, the importance of a will and also the importance of a trust. So we won't really cover those, but I wanted to mention those. So that's in the forefront of your brain. Okay. Funeral planning declaration. Okay. Funeral planning declaration allows one to say exactly one's wishes as far as disposition of the body and the services. If the above documents are done, you can avoid probate. All of this is to avoid all the backbiting and the fighting within the family and the friends. These will avoid court. These are pen and stone documents that will ensure and give you a peace of mind that the right things and the right property and assets are going to the right people. That is what's important, family. Okay. That is what's important. Also, here's a quick little tip. I kind of do this. Some people say, you know, it's not the best thing to do because I keep it in the cloud. I won't tell what cloud I keep it in. But what's important is that you make a list of your banks, your account numbers, your passwords, your PIN codes, and you safeguard it somewhere. Whether it be in a house safe or an encrypted cloud drive, and you let those people, okay, or that person, or you give access within a bank or two where someone can actually access the documents to get to all of these documents. See, that's the problem here. A lot of times there could be family members and friends who know what your will and testament is, your POD or your TOD is, and they can go and doctor and fraudulent, and alter the document so those benefits and assets come to them. So again, family, you have to set these things up masterfully to avoid bloodshed when you're gone, okay? Because depending on how much you have, how much you're worth, you may have a 1967 a Chevy Challenger or Dodge Challenger, not Chevy Challenger, Dodge Challenger, and it may be worth $50,000-$60,000. You're like, hey, I don't want it to go to my brother. He don't know nothing about cars. My sister always wanted to. You get the point I'm making here. So it's important to set these things up. When I look at Michael Jackson, when I look at Prince, what's the sister that just passed away? She was a soul sister. Was it Aretha Franklin, or was it I believe her name started with a G? But nonetheless, what they stated is that none of these multi-million-dollar black people had a will. They didn't have a will. That's important because here's the thing, family. How many people you think came out the woodwork? How many people you think came out the bushes when they realized Michael Jackson and Prince didn't have a will, didn't have a trust? Everybody is in probate in court trying to contest that money and property and those assets because they didn't do their due diligence. That's just the truth of the matter. And you may think you don't have two red nickels to rub together, but I guarantee you have something of value that somebody in your family could either profit from or they want to take when you die. So again, these things I'm telling you here, family, is very, very important, okay? Also leave clear instructions as to how and when these things are paid, okay? You can do that as well. Now, in this day and age with technology, with your cell phone and your tablet and your smartwatch, you know, we got all these devices. You ever thought of this? Make sure that someone knows your Apple or Android ID and your bank ID account, logins and passwords. Okay, I need to really double down on that because I know a lot of times, like, man, ain't gonna buy my damn password. Well, when you pass away, how are people going to access that money? Okay, we can go back up to the POD, but there are some things that are electronic, like my cryptocurrencies. Is what they might have to show. There's really no document. You actually need the account ID as well as the password. And sometimes if it's in a crypto wallet, you need to know where the authenticator app is and how to input that. And then what about your phone number? Sometimes things come to your phone number. Hey, you're gonna receive this code in a text message. So all of these things are important. To even have some people who have access on your phone records, so they can actually make changes and actually get numbers and all sorts of IDs from those accounts. Very important. Now, if you own any of your property, like your cars, make sure that you have all your titles. Okay, make sure you have all your titles for your vehicles, your campers, any of those large purchase items that you actually paid off, just like the deed of your house with the payable on death, and also the transfer on death deed. These things are important, okay? Because most likely, I know old school people used to keep very important documents and money under their bed. Now, some people have house safes, but nowadays people are really doing and storing their documents inside of banks, okay? Store your documents inside of banks. That way, that can be all contained in one area. And the instructions to the bank is no one can access this. You make a list of people who can access this. People you trust, of course, who won't, make you hurry up to die. I'll just say it that way. But nonetheless, you make an access list of people who can actually access that, what's the name of the boxes, you put inside the bank? You know what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, you want to have that access list so in your untimely demise, someone can go in and access those documents, okay? Now, another important thing is you need to talk with your closest friends and family of the wishes that you have before you pass and whom you designate. A lot of these people actually need to know, and I'm pretty sure the people who you designate doesn't really have you marked for death, right? They would rather have you around, but these are some things that you really need to consider. Also, those close to whom you do not designate, you want to do this to explain why your decisions were made and to avoid any lingering questions or hurt feelings, okay? Because a lot of times when you don't leave people things, like take for instance, Christmas time. There's a part of your family you give Christmas gifts. There's a part of your family you don't give Christmas gifts. And then some of you just don't give nothing, which is fine. Because like, hey, he didn't give me nothing. He didn't give me nothing either. Okay, cool. But if you give one part of your family and friends Christmas gifts and not the other, believe it or not, behind your back, there's a lot of, backbiting and fighting and arguing and all sorts of things. So if you tell people, hey, when I pass away, I know that I have, the truck, I know I have the business, I know I have the house. Unfortunately, I won't be leaving you anything, and this is why. These are tough conversations, family, but you do not want any of the things that you surmounted, that you have worked your ass off to obtain to go to the government. This is to avoid the government making decisions on your estate, on your assets, on your money. So these are the particular types of money moves that you need to make in order to set yourself up for success, even when you have passed away. So again, these are not the popular videos that people like to essentially see, but these are the type of videos that you guys actually need to hear and set up, because I know in the Black community, we kind of suffer from not setting up wills and trusts. It's because the spirit and the energy that is, kind of around death. But believe me, family, your family will benefit far greater when you establish these documents rather than your money and your assets going to the government, whether it be state or federal. Okay? State or federal. So with that being said, family, I'm going to leave you with that. And I really want you guys to get out, get this stuff done, because nobody never knows the day nor the hour.